I'm very excited. 10 years just feels surreal because one, it doesn't feel like it's been that long.
A lot of people don't know your background. Through the years of knowing each other, the stories are never ending. Tell me about the career that you had before the idea of Freshlist came about.
My first professional career post-college was working for a company called Press Pass here in Charlotte. They were a sports licensing company, which basically meant they made trading cards and collectibles, but the primary subjects were NASCAR drivers. So I spent a lot of time in the NASCAR space. Had a hot pass, which is I actually had a hard card, which you could walk anywhere on a track, go hang out, pit road. It was a fun job out of college. Ultimately, I got to this point where I knew I was gonna wake up and be 80 years old and wonder what I did with my life, and I wanted a better answer.
I think the most logical next question for me to ask you is, what got you into local food? What got you into the mindset that this was important?
So where we're sitting here, our little property in the Belmont community, not to be confused with the town of Belmont, over here in between Plaza Midwood and Noda and Uptown, there's this neighborhood that existed before Plaza Midwood. I mean, this was a community built for the workers of the factory, the cotton mill behind us. And we moved in here and met some really awesome best friends, neighbors, Michael and Nicole, and the four of us, with my partner Kirsten, we started throwing seeds in the ground and building garden beds, and basically just fell in love with growing stuff from seed. And then, I remember calling my grandma and asking, like, how do I can green beans, or how do I can tomatoes, and her being like, I thought you were done with that. Like, why? I thought you didn't even want to touch that. That's why you went to college. And I was like, yeah, but things are changing. It really personally reset my own value system, and I just appreciated things like actually growing that tomato all the way to, from seed to plate. In order to get out of corporate and actually have a career beyond that, was going to require some sort of business model. And we really felt like technology was a good opportunity to connect farmers and chefs. That was the initial idea. Talk to farmers at the markets. I'd go to the South End Market, to the Matthews Market, to Davidson, and just ask farmers, what's hard? And it turns out a lot of it, pretty much everything they do is hard. Same thing, talking to chefs and even when you're at Fern, just describing how complex it is to bring local produce into a restaurant on a continuous basis was just overwhelming. I was like, there has to be a better way. But I was also naive and had these grandiose visions of building a technology company that would connect chefs and farmers, and we would take a cut, scale across the country. We were going to be in multiple cities by 2018, whatever the timeline was. And that's how we got into this space. But obviously the business has changed since then.
So from the original background of being a technology company, you realize that there are a few things that are going to have to change. Early on, what stood out to you as the most significant change that was going to have to happen from the original idea to where we are today, 10 years later?
I think for me personally, I thought I was, doing my diligence by talking to farmers, talking to chefs, getting to know people in the food system, and really understanding the problem. But it's not until you actually are in it and are part of the system that you really have a shot at understanding what the real problem is. You can ask farmers all kinds of questions and try to understand their business, but until you see them at a farmer's market knowing that they've been up for 3 hours packing in the rain, and that they probably won't sell everything at that market, and they have to take it back and figure out a place for it, and their high tunnels are getting destroyed because of a summer storm, or just driving into Charlotte, period, and making restaurant deliveries. We were we were kind of concerned about, we didn't want to become a middleman because we thought that would get in the way of the relationship between chef and farmer. And so we had to figure out how can we still support farmers and add value without, being in the middle, in a sense of like, you can't know who the farmer is because you just need to know Freshlist. People still need to know who the farmers are, but farmers are very busy people. And I think Brent said it best when I was talking with him a couple years ago about what do we do for you? And it's really, he needs to be a shadow in the field. As much as he loves chefs and spending time with customers, like the farm is very demanding, and the more we can provide support and infrastructure and marketing and all of the things that we do as a food hub, the more that we can help those farmers bring stuff into town, but then go back to the farm and spend time there. That's what had to change. So we actually had to roll up our sleeves and we bought a van, rented some space out of Lenny Boy, and started a little food hub as a way to actually get stuff done, to make a difference, even though it was very small in the beginning. So,
in 2018, what people know Freshlist for now in 2024 is just beginning as a food hub, where we have that space in Lenny Boy, we have a vehicle to do deliveries. What do you think the biggest changes from the early days of how we did it to the current days and how we operate now have been from your perspective?
I mean, a lot, both from just the business operational standpoint, but also the impact. I mean, we had a handful of farms that we were maybe writing $150, $200 checks to each week, and we had a handful of chefs we were selling to. We had systems that, we had patched together with spreadsheets and printing labels. I remember you printing these labels that were going to go on the chef bins and like putting an extra row in between the spreadsheet so you had room to cut them and tape them on and all these things that I was like, this is very inefficient, but for now it's what works. We had to use, we ended up kind of being like farmers in the sense that we had to use the resources that we had to achieve what we were trying to do. And in the process, it turns out that just doing business the right way and being a good people and honest has served us very well. We haven't done a whole lot of marketing other than obviously the social media marketing, which our social media team is fantastic. But the way that we told people about who we are and who we existed to support was talking directly with chefs and farmers, and also backing that up with action. And fast forward to today, we have an incredible team because people believed in us, both as farmers and chefs, and also people that saw the work we're doing, and they were like, I want to come work with these guys.
Why is it important that this work is being done in Charlotte, North Carolina?
So I think a food hub can serve a purpose in just about any city. How they serve the purpose depends on the size of the city, because it's hard to run a food hub relying on restaurant customers. If you're in, Peoria, Illinois, maybe, you kind of have to figure out what markets exist. And that's really what we do at our core is help create market opportunities and market access for farmers. Charlotte just happens to be in this space where, one, our region has some of the best diversity of like crops and things that can be grown here throughout the seasons. Even the forage stuff like pawpaws. I'd never had a pawpaw before. They have like 8 minutes of shelf life, but to be able to taste that for the first time and is just incredibly unique. And then you find these chefs that appreciate that, and Charlotte has attracted more and more chefs because chefs want to go to a place where they can use good ingredients and cook for people that appreciate it. Charlotte it's in this perfect spot where I feel like the city's growing. There's enough of a market to support a food hub here, and the quality of farms that we have in this area is incredible, but also it's not so big that we can't still have an impact on what Charlotte becomes. If you look at food systems in other cities, some of them are great, but some of them in big cities are not great. And we want to show people that you can do a food system that works for everybody and really helps uplift farmers, but also provide people with good access to all of those wonderful fruits and vegetables.
What do you want to see change in the future to make our food systems more robust and more connected?
There's a lot that needs to change in general with food systems, because while I feel like we've made tremendous progress in terms of creating market access and opportunities for farmers and helping connect people with local, there's still a long way to go. You know, if you're someone who wants to go and work the land and farm, whether that's in a half-acre lot or a 50-acre farm, there just needs to be a market and places for you to sell that produce. I mean, that's how we want to take care of the people that are taking care of the land. And the best way to take care of people in this scenario is make sure that when that harvest is ready, they have someone there who can pay them a good price for that, and that be a consistent thing. You know, it's so difficult for farmers to balance growth when you started out as a farmer's market, but then you grow beyond what that one market can buy from you. Well, then you start looking to restaurants and like, okay, well, I'm going to start driving to a couple of restaurants and building relationships with chefs, and then you grow, and then you need another vehicle, or you need more cold storage, and then you get on this treadmill where it just never stops. You have to have more infrastructure just to keep up, and next thing you know, you're on a huge farm and everything's mechanized. Is the only way to be profitable, and that's the system that we're trying to break. It shouldn't be so difficult to grow good produce, diverse varieties of things, and get that to people and make a good living. I don't understand how it's become so complicated. I mean, I do. There's a lot of different points in time where the system became broken in agriculture, but we're determined to fix it. We have the team that can do it. We have impact. We've actually grown every year since the pandemic. And that to me is the most exciting thing about where we're at and at this point in our journey.
In 2024, what is your 30-second elevator pitch of what Freshlist is or what Freshlist does?
Freshlist is a team of people who are passionate about farmers and the people that are taking care of our land, and Freshlist exists to help those people have a good quality of life, to flourish, to have comfort knowing that even though we're not always out there on the farm or out there with them at 4 a.m. when they're packing for markets, they know that there are people here that are pulling for them and cheering them on, and that's what we do.
If somebody was just getting into local food, like today was the first day that they heard local food exists, they had no idea what it was before, who would you tell them to follow? Who would you tell them to read? Or what stories would you share with them to continue to inspire them on their journey?
I think the answer kind of depends on what you want to do in the food system. If you want to farm, or you are farming and are trying to figure out how to get more plugged into Charlotte's food system, I think making sure you understand what's already, what the need is, understanding where demand for products might be, and we do a good job of that. I think whenever people reach out and say, hey, we're interested in growing stuff, we want to know what you're growing, not because we're exclusive and we're only accepting these types of vegetables, but the market has to be able to support it. So if you're only trying to grow microgreens and you reach out to us, we're probably going to point you to the direction of a couple other microgreen farmers and really just try to help you understand that it's not about what you can grow, it's about also what the market needs. If you're a chef, I think, Charlotte has a great chef community. I think just going and spending time at farmers markets, stopping by Freshlist, on a Wednesday or a Thursday, and really just kind of seeing what all is available in this region, I think is a good place to start. If you're a consumer, I think, again, going to farmers markets, just because we have a completely different model than a farmer's market doesn't mean they don't play a valuable role. I mean, farmers would do their best if they could sell 100% of what they grew to people coming to their farm at the highest price possible with no extra work. Second best is a farmer's market where you have people coming to this centralized place and they're still, you're getting top dollar for everything and you get that relationship. And then beyond that, farmers need to diversify the markets and the ways in which they sell, I think, to be successful. But there's nothing that can replace going to a farmer's market and shaking the hand of that farmer and really just spending time with them. And maybe that's just my own bias, because that's kind of how I got to this place, was when the technology didn't work and I'd already invested so much of my time and energy and what little bit of savings I had accumulated in my late 20s. When the technology didn't work, I had to make a decision, like, do I just go back to corporate America? But my problem is, for better, was that I'd been to too many farms and I'd looked too many farmers in the eye and shook their hand and said, I'm gonna help you. Once you have that relationship and that connection with a farmer, you don't necessarily have to go to the farmer's market every week to get that, to get the produce and have that same connection, but it helps you understand where your food's really coming from. And that's the, I think the best way that you can really get into the local food system is seek out restaurants that are sourcing local. Obviously, we have a unique setup in that we have a list on our website of all the restaurants that buy from us, but it's not a list that we look at and update every quarter or once a year. To be on that list, you have had to have placed an order within the last month. And it's kind of tied into our internal systems where this is a verification of these people are definitely doing the extra work to source local. So I think as a consumer, to be able to make sure you're seeking those things out and really, none of this works if consumers don't appreciate and invest in this food system with us.
In 10 years from now, when we sit down to film this same interview, what do you think will be the biggest impact that we've had in that period of time?
Oh, man. I think if it's 2034 and we're having this same discussion, one, I hope we have to explain to less people who Freshlist is, because whether you're a farmer or a chef or consumer who's in Charlotte, whether you just moved here or you've been here for a while, I want people to know and understand why we exist and understand what it means when you're supporting us and the farmers and chefs that we work with, knowing that relationship and the work that we've done to really help make it to where people can come to Charlotte and just access local food, all kinds of local food from good people in an instant. That's the piece that I feel like I want for Charlotte and for the hub. I think beyond that, I still have big aspirations of making the technology impact that we set out to. Over the course of starting a food hub almost by accident and then ending up with one of the largest food hubs in the Southeast, kind of not by accident, but by just grinding and putting in the work. I have always had in the back of my mind, I still wanted to make an impact in communities beyond Charlotte, and I just needed to understand what that would look like. And we have an opportunity now. We've been building some technology solutions for other food hubs in the region, like Leap up in Roanoke, done some work with Grow Food Carolina, Swamp Rabbit Cafe, to take some of the lessons we learned from our hub and help share those with others in this space is huge. And there's still a big opportunity to do that. And so I want people not only in this city to recognize and understand the impact that this team has made and that our farmers have helped create, but also want that to be the case beyond Charlotte. If that doesn't happen, that's okay. This is still an incredible success. The food hub that we've built and everything that we've gotten to this point with. So,
where did your passion for local food systems come from?
I've been trying to understand what the passion really is, because sometimes I question whether it's just the ability to get fresh produce and to know a farmer and to, there's so many things that local food systems do for a community, whether it's economic or environmental or just the, connection and community with people. I think for me, it was more about this passion and desire to help people that I've felt like were underappreciated, underpaid, not getting enough recognition for the work they're doing. And those people exist in farms and in kitchens. And I think that's kind of what, it's certainly about the food, but really for me, it was the thing that really pulled me into this and kept me was knowing that there were people out there who had dedicated their lives to serving their community, whether that be by cooking or by growing. And then the people you attract along the way, when that's the case, those people also become part of that passion. So the food's great, but there's definitely bigger things driving all of that.
What's been one of or a few of your most rewarding moments over these past 10 years?
I don't have any. No, I'm kidding. I think it was Wednesday, March 11th, 2020. That may not be the actual Wednesday, but whatever that Wednesday is, I was in New Orleans at the Wallace Center's Good Food Network Summit, and it was the first time I'd ever been to an event where there were other food hub people in the same room, and it felt like this huge therapy session / collaborative brainstorming. Just it was amazing to be around people who have done similar work in other parts of the country, and then the whole world started falling apart from the sense of what we knew and how things worked. And that Wednesday, I remember the rest of the conference got canceled. It started on Monday, went to Monday sessions, Tuesday sessions. Wednesday was canceled. I spent some time in the lobby of the hotel with 4P Foods, who was heavily dependent on school systems and these big customers that were closing, immediately. Charlotte was still open for business, but it didn't take long to see that was about to change. And I think I certainly don't want another pandemic, but I think we had positioned ourselves where we were building the thing that the pandemic was going to underscore the biggest need for, and that's this resilience and independent food system that no matter what happens, in other communities or overseas or in other states, if you have a strong food system, you know where to get food. You've got farmers, all the infrastructure is there and in place, and all you do is, you just need people to come in and exchange with that system. And so we had a lot of people that needed help and needed good food, and we were in the perfect spot. The second was getting back. We moved into our facility, our first real space that we had ever existed in. And it sucked that we couldn't go buy furniture because all the furniture stores were closed, and we were sitting on coolers and using plastic folding tables as desks, but that was still a huge milestone. Another big one is, honestly, when we were at the team retreat a couple weeks ago and just seeing the group that we have, none of this feels like work. It's certainly hard, long hours and difficult things that challenge you mentally and physically. But look at everybody hanging out, and it just seems so natural. Like, we have an incredible team, and that's become a huge part of the mission with Freshlist that wasn't necessarily explicit in the beginning. I knew that we wanted to have a good team, but I didn't really know what that meant. I didn't know that that meant it would carry me through difficult times. Yeah, there's a few of the highlights. I'm very excited. 10 years just feels surreal because, one, it doesn't feel like it's been that long.
No.
It was a little surprising whenever you just look down and realize that you've been doing this for 10 years, and it's a good reflection point, though. I'm big on anniversaries, and I don't miss many supermoons, and there's just something about cyclical things that it's important to stop and take a minute to reflect. I'm excited to just celebrate what we've done, but then get back to work. Got a lot of work to do.